So what happens when you go to pull cash out and it's just not there? Not because your bank account's empty and not because the ATM's broke, but because the banks literally don't have enough physical cash to give you. This picture, I took at my bank this weekend when I went down to do some banking. This isn't a hypothetical. It's happened before in this country. And right now, in 2026, the warning signs are there that it could happen again and hit a lot harder. This is Ohio Valley Prepping, and today we're talking about something most people in the prepping community are sleeping on: the coming cash crunch, and exactly what you need to do about it before it's too late. Okay, so let me give you some context, because this isn't fear-mongering, it's just reading what's already happening. So back in 2023, the U.S. had its worst wave of bank failures since the 2008 recession. Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic, Signature Bank, gone. Hundreds of billions in assets wiped out in days. And that shockwave never fully settled. So fast forward to 2025, more closures. Branch shutdowns accelerated. And just last December, the Federal Reserve meeting minutes showed that the Fed officials were actively worried about short-term funding markets running tight. Meaning the system where a bank borrows cash from each other overnight to keep things running was showing stress. The Fed doesn't say things like that casually. That's a warning bell. And on top of that, we already lived through a coin and cash shortage just a few years back during the whole Charlie Victor 19 episode. Businesses couldn't make change. People couldn't pay bills. Entire communities were left scrambling. The system is more fragile than most people think. And if you're here in the Ohio Valley, in the rural areas, the small towns, the communities that already don't have very many bank branches, well, you're more exposed than most. Okay, here's what I want you to picture. Not some Hollywood apocalypse movie, just a regular Tuesday. A cyber attack or a solar flare hits a regional bank's network, or a storm knocks out the card payment infrastructure across 3 counties, or a bank run starts. People panic. People start withdrawing everything, and suddenly, your local ATM is empty and won't be restocked for at least 72 hours. So what do you do? If the answer's, I don't know, or even worse, I'll just use my card, well, that's exactly the problem. Because in a cash shortage, the card readers go down when the internet goes down. And your digital wallet, it's useless without the internet. Banks can also legally limit how much cash you can withdraw during a liquidity crisis. Small businesses, the backbone of towns like ours, get hit first and hardest. People without bank accounts, people paid in cash, people on fixed incomes, they get hurt immediately. Look, this isn't an extreme situation. It happened in Greece in 2015. ATM withdrawals were limited to 60 euros a day. It happened in Cyprus in 2013. The banks closed for 2 weeks. And it happened right here during the Charlie Victor 19 thing with the coins and the exact change. The question isn't if a cash disruption can happen, it's whether you'll be ready when it does. All right, enough about the why. Let's talk about the what now. This is what I recommend and what I actually do personally. So most people think that cash on hand means having an extra 20 in their glove compartment. Well, that's not a bad idea, but that's not a cash reserve. A real cash reserve means having enough to cover 2 to 4 weeks of essential expenses. Food, fuel, medication, utilities if you can pay them in person. For most families in our area, that's somewhere between $500 and $1,500 in physical cash. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but think about what you spend in a month. Now, think about having none of that accessible digitally. In other words, your bank card don't work, so you either pay in cash or you don't pay. So what do you actually need in your hands? Okay, so here's the breakdown I suggest. Keep the majority in 20s and 10s because that's going to be the most usable for everyday transactions. Keep a good chunk in 5s and 1s for small purchases and to make change. You don't really need many 50s or 100s because a lot of small businesses won't accept them even now, so especially in a crisis. And don't rely on a single bank, especially the big branch banks that don't have that many branches. Have accounts in a couple different banks, ideally one of them being a local credit union. Know your bank's cash withdrawal policies during an emergency. Just ask them, they'll tell you. And keep a small amount in a second account that you don't touch, and a backup debit card that works even if your main bank is having issues. Also, keep your cash in a fireproof lockbox. Don't stuff it in some book or something. If your house burns down, well, that book's probably not going to survive. And here's one that a lot of people don't think about in a prolonged cash shortage. The barter system is going to become your currency. Make sure you have high-value barter items on hand. Things like coffee, tobacco, small bottles of alcohol, batteries, lighters, matches, over-the-counter medications like pain relievers, antacid, allergy medicines, a little bit of fuel if you can safely store it, and even some seeds and canned goods are pretty good for bartering. You don't have to be a trading post. You just have to have a shelf of these things so that you have options when your cards fail. Look, a cash shortage rarely ever happen alone. It usually comes along with some power outages or supply chain slowdowns or panic buying. You need to pre-position yourself, so keep your gas tank above half a tank always, not just in emergencies. Have at least 30 days of food supply. You're not buying during a panic. That's a bad idea. Have your medications available and have enough water to get you through. All right, now let me talk specifically to those of you who are watching from our little neck of the woods here in the Ohio Valley. West Virginia, Eastern Ohio, Western PA, the Kentucky River towns. Most of us aren't in a major metro area. And that's a strength in a lot of ways, but in a cash disruption, it also means we got fewer ATMs. 3 ATMs in your town are empty. There's no alternative to block over. Most of the time, we also got fewer bank branches. Big banks have been closing the rural branches for years. And if the branch closes or limits the hours during a crisis, the next one might be 45 miles away. A lot of the small businesses in our area, well, they're more reliable on cash. The diner, the hardware store, the feed supply store, they run on cash and on thin margins. They can't absorb processing fees. Okay, so here's the flip side, and it really matters. People in these areas, well, they look out for each other. A neighbor with a generator, a farmer who trades you some eggs for a little bit of labor, a community that shares. That's a prep that no amount of money can fully replace. So get to know your neighbors. Get to know your local farmers. Know who the informal network of trust looks like when you're in the holler, your road, your street. This is a prep that belongs right next to your cash reserve. So I want to wrap this up by again showing you the sign that was posted at my local bank over the weekend. And I want you to know that it's important that prepping for a cash shortage isn't about being paranoid. It's about being the person who stays calm when everybody else is freaking out. When the ATM is empty and the line at the gas station is 20 cars deep, you're the person who already has what you need. You're the person your neighbors come to. You're the person who can help instead of scrambling around. And that's what this channel has always been about. Not fear, readiness. Hey, the signs are there. The Fed's worried. The banks are stressed. The push to go cashless is accelerating. And when the digital system hiccups, people who depend entirely get caught flat-footed. Don't be that person. Be ready. So if this video was useful, hey, hit all the buttons. It generally helps our channel reach more people who need this information. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Remember, stay ready, stay grounded. We'll see you all on the other side. This is Ohio Valley Prepping, out.